Hi again. I'm here to take a few minutes to share with you about buyer personas. I don't think it's a new topic for you. For most people it isn't, but maybe I can lend a little bit more insight about how to develop yours and more importantly, why you need them to begin with or what you're trying to accomplish with them. Buyer personas, to be frank, a lot of businesses find a pain in the butt to pull together because you realize that you don't know as much about your customer as you thought you did. So if that's true for you, or you think it could be true for you, get excited because this is an opportunity to help you increase your effectiveness in your outreach to bringing in new customers, bringing in new clients. Effectiveness that comes from buyer personas happens in a number of different ways. You're going to write more meaningful marketing content because you have a person that you're writing to, that we know is going to read it. It's going to help you sort your CRM contacts in a meaningful way. It's going to improve internal communications among your team members in sales and marketing when it comes to a new lead coming in. Oh, it's this type of buyer persona. When they get it right then, there's no need to explain a lot of other detail. We can just focus perhaps on the details of what that opportunity is as opposed to who the person is and what their background is. Now, there are some misconceptions about what a buyer persona is. We often think it's some sort of descriptor about a person, like their age, demographically, so their age, their education, their household income. And that kind of data is traditionally used for consumer-based type of buyer personas. But here instead, we are selling to people. I mean, people buy in businesses. We're not selling to a business is people. But what we want to know about these people is very different than what would be like your regular consumer out on the marketplace that we're trying to sell to directly. So let me go over what kind areas you want to address with your buyer persona, and then you can use the template that comes along with this to kind of fill in the information. And if you're having trouble with that, at the end of me going over this criteria, I'll explain to you some ways that you can capture that information. So let's start with roles as the first area. What is this person responsible for? What is it that they do day in and day out? Notice we didn't have on here their job title. That's really not very relevant because people can have a lot of different titles and their jobs between different businesses, and their jobs can be very different. So roles is more about what they're responsible for and what they do on a regular basis, and how they interact with other people within the company they work in. So a role for an administrative level position could be to book all the travel, or maybe that's not their job or role. Maybe their role is customer service. So those are the kind of things that you would document. Then you want to talk about or document what are their goals. Generally, what is it they're trying to accomplish within the roles that they have? That's going to make them successful on the job. What makes them look good? Because if you help other people, if you help the people within the company that you're trying to sell to, if you help them be successful, then everybody's happy, everybody wins. And we're not trying to sell them something that they don't need. Matter of fact, we can know that they need it, but until they recognize that that need is going to help them accomplish their goals, they won't be an advocate. They could even hinder that sales process. So we really want to bring everybody on board. But we have to understand what their goals are. So the decision maker buyer persona versus the influence buyer persona have two very different sets of roles and two very different sets of goals, but they're all involved. They all play a role. I'm confusing the two words here. Okay, challenges. This buyer persona, what do they struggle with on the job? Now, you don't have to talk about or document everything that they're challenged with across the board, just as it pertains to the solutions your company provides. So keep it within that context. It doesn't have to go broadly across to areas that have nothing to do with what your solution, your services could help resolve. So keep it within there. But what are their struggles? And it can be process based. It could be maybe interpersonal dynamics. Maybe they don't have the authority, but they have the responsibility. Look at all those different dynamics. Generally, what are the struggles that they have? Now, we want to look at, well, what are their watering holes? What are the places that they go find answers? What kind of blogs do they read? What kind of podcasts do they listen to? What kind of YouTube videos do they watch? Maybe even what are the most popular channels that they use to go access this information? Because to be truthful, people go look for answers from the internet more often than any other place. Now, they might ask their colleagues, and that's true, and that's why networking works really well, because then they can refer you. But on the internet, we aren't necessarily out there looking for a product or a service to fix our problem. We're just trying to figure out what our problem is, what to deal with it. It is typically very superficial, very, and I need a Band-Aid solution. But after a while, when I go to these watering holes, I start to learn, there's bigger and better things out there that I need to consider. And of course, you want to appear in those watering holes as someone providing authority on the matter. But we have to know what they are. And for different personas, they're in different watering holes. The last one is personal background. Now, this isn't quite as important as the rest of these, but it's still kind of helpful because we have to personify. We have to put like a face behind this, because a buyer persona is a fictitious representation of what could be a real person. So you do want to probably add, are they married or not? Do they have kids in college or in middle school? What is the age range generally? What is the gender generally, or that falls into that role? And come up with a really great name for your buyer persona so it's fun to say. I don't know, I do like Marketing Mary, Decisive Daisy. I mean, you could I like adding little descriptors to the name, but you can title your buyer personas any way you want to. Now, you might be thinking, well, how many buyer personas do I need to have, and where do they come from? So back in the prior video that you watched before this about that ideal client description, that's exactly where you go. Under that ideal description of that kind of business, so all the criteria about that define what that business looks like, now we're going to pick out our decision makers and our influencers. And in most cases, we're talking 2 to 3 buyer personas that would really play a role, but you can already think of this already with the clients that you have, but that would play a role in that sales and marketing, or really what is their buying journey, from company to company. So that's where you pick out your buyer personas. Go for your ideal client description, pinpoint 2 or 3 personas that you want to work on, and then start filling out that worksheet, with these criteria here. Now, if you get stumped, and sometimes the goals and the challenges area is where people get stumped, it can also be watering holes, then you need to go do some research. It could be that you take your current clients, the one that fit that ideal criteria, and interview them. Or if you can, go out and find participants or companies that are willing to be interviewed, or surveyed is another thing too, just to get this information. If you have a really large database and you have a lot of data from past years that help break this information down, you could use that. It might just be some data mining. That's a great place to start. I mean, just talking to people is going to help fill in the gaps. And this is a living document too, so you need to constantly keep it updated. So I think that this should cover all the details you need to know about buyer personas. Draft something, and if you want me to take a look at it, shoot it over to me, or drop me a question, email, or give me a phone call if that would help you out. And I look forward to seeing what you pull together.